Now, I know you've got all of this coming up in the Pinder report, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but we can't
No, we have to talk about it. Let's talk about it.
kick the can around until then. But so we'll start, I guess, with some Frank bombs came out this morning by way of the Twitter and by way of the Soch. We'll start with Noah Hanifin, who we've talked about plenty, and I don't know that this is necessarily breaking news, but it's just the latest from Frank. The tweet as of less than an hour ago. The belief is Flames have received a more direct answer from defenseman Noah Hanifin, who has clearly indicated that he does not plan to sign an extension in Calgary. This doesn't necessarily guarantee a trade, but Calgary has an answer on where he stands. Again, kind of reinforcing, I think, what we all believed, or at least what we all were hearing that other people believed. So, to Frank's point, it doesn't guarantee a trade. But if what Conroy said at his press conference about not being able to essentially walk pending UFAs into a season and risk losing them for nothing, you can still trade him in the season, I suppose. You can still do that.
Don't get hurt.
Don't get hurt. And don't be good. That's the other thing, too, that we found. That if you're a good team and you're in a playoff hunt or in your playoff spot, it's hard to trade your really good players.
Frank made a good point. You can walk away. Let him go.
I mean, I think if you can choose between getting a bunch of picks and not having the player or just letting him walk and getting the cap space, I'd rather have both.
Is that a bit hypocritical on my side when I absolutely roast Treliving for not trading?
Is it a bit hypocritical?
Hypocritical?
Or you could just let him walk for nothing. You could you'll just get that cap space back.
No.
It's
I
a
mean, you do get
smidge.
cap space if you just take picks back. I do want to remind people that it's not one of the other. It could be both.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of both.
Yeah,
it's
you
like
can
a
get
really, really, really good draft class.
Okay, I said this yesterday and we never followed up. Would it be an option, in your two dummies' opinions, to combine, say, you want Hanifin, you're taking more of our money and not get anything back? In other words, the two highest paid centermen on the team.
Well,
Or not centermen,
and Huberdeau,
yeah.
You could. I'd rather try to get a pick in the top 20 here. This is a really nice crop.
There's no guarantees in life, Ryan.
Of course there isn't, but Jesus.
So for that, so let's just paint an example. Let's say it's Nazem Kadri.
Sure.
That would be one of them. So you would be sending Noah Hanifin, potentially with an extension long-term, and Kadri somewhere. You would have to be taking back some money, I would guess, because you'd be talking
That's
about
$12
Hanifin's $5 million, just a shade under 5 this year.
I mean, are there not teams out there that might work with you that have some cap space?
Not 12.
Huh?
Not 12 million. That's what those two guys are making. I mean, you don't want to eat on Kadri because you're eating for 6 years. Beat this year on Hanifin, sure, but I don't see a team that thinks they're contending this year with $10 million cap space.
Yeah, but the Buffalo Sabres?
Do they have $10 million in cap space?
Now, I'll just finish that point. Now,
okay,
if you were
then there's a good idea, yeah.
But if you were to take money back, it doesn't mean that you're taking 6 years of it. You could be taking it short term. Maybe it's the final year of a deal where you're sure we'll take that guy that's got $5 million.
And then the cap's up next year, and they can deal with their shit later. Yeah, you absolutely could. I just think it's going to be really easy to be bad. If you're going to be bad, what's really hard is to collect good hockey players, and this is the draft you want to collect players from.
Like but the Flames aren't the only ones seeing it, though. Ryan is the only fly in the ointment here, right? Like,
no, I'm not suggesting other teams don't know it's a good draft. What I'm suggesting is if you're a contender that sees your chance to win is this year or next year, this year's draft pick ain't helping you win a cup. It's going to be beyond that. So you're trading futures for present.
And the other part of that is it's great to have cap space. What are you doing with it next year, right? Like,
if you're the Flames or somebody else.
If you're the Flames. So say you clear off, say somebody says, yeah, I'll take Hanifin and even Huberdeau. Great. You've cleared up a whole bunch of cap space next year. What's your plan to use that cap space? Anything? Or do you now start taking shitty contracts? Because this is the trickle-down effect, right? Chess, not checkers. You've got cap space now. Now you could take someone like you didn't move Hanifin and Huberdeau for picks. Okay. Damn, it would have been nice to get picks. Guess what you got? a bunch of cap space. Who's in a tight crunch? There's a bunch of teams. We'll take your shitty money. Give us your picks, right? Like once you start moving the pieces, there's other ways of getting those picks that you
could do it twice over. You could trade Hanifin for picks, get the cap space, take someone else's bad money with picks, get picks. Go. Yeah. I just think, like you could really work hard to try to remove one of these cumbersome, huge contracts. I still agree with Boomer yesterday. This is the absolute sell moment for the careers of Kadri and Huberdeau. If you can even wait 1 year, you might be able to do it with less pain than this offseason. That's my take on it. I think if the coach had anything at all to do with them not having years that we're accustomed to seeing, then you'll have a better spot to move them in a year from now. If the coach was not an issue at all and they're just failed players, okay, well then you're in the same spot you are next summer.
What a shitty thing though. You're giving up your 2-3 defensemen.
I'm suggesting trading him for a pile of assets, not giving him up for nothing. That's my suggestion.
My point, though, is for those guys to look good, do they need to? Does that not mean the team needs to be good? And if you're
no, there's good players on bad teams. I mean, if Huberdeau looks like the Huberdeau that arrived in Calgary and not the one that played in Calgary, you're happy with where you're at versus what you had this year. If Nazem Kadri looks
you're
like
happy with what you're at because you're going to get production from him, but if you're deleting from your decor and you can't fill that hole, and now all of a sudden you're losing, you know what I mean? Like
I do. I'm not really talking about winning next year. What I'm talking about is asset management, where it's like if I don't think you can let Lindholm or Hanifin walk for nothing. And I think if you can find ways to get into the top 20 of this draft, like you could really swing the fortunes of this club for the next decade significantly. You might not, but it's the best. When you look at draft classes, this one is, at this point with, we had Byron Bader on last night for a draft thing. Like the numbers kids are putting up in their draft year this year, we haven't seen since that 03 class. If you could pull a Perry Getzlaf type thing out of this draft class, it completely changes your fortunes. I'd rather that than trying to dump a guy who's had a career worst season.
So Pinder did a draft preview show for us last night, as he mentions, and he's been told by guys in the know how great the draft class is. So we're going to be hearing a lot. We're going to be hearing from Pinder about draft picks a lot over the next.
But
6 days.
Honestly, we've heard about the 23 class for 3 years. This isn't new. You know that it's a deep draft, and here was a question from last night that a little teaser for Tuesday's show next week. Where would Shane Wright or Juraj Slavkovsky have gone? The presumptive number one and the actual number one if they were in this year's draft class. These guys think they go in the teens. That's a Western scout and a guy that simply looks at data and says, here's what guys with this type of production from these leagues typically do. Like that's how much better this year's class is than last.
Sure. No, like you.
Please find more top 20 picks in this year's draft. That's
okay, but here, it's too. I don't disagree with you, and sure, the comparisons with the 2003, but you still have a third of those guys aren't as great as what you know what I mean. Like the 2003 draft class, still they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
10 Hall of Famers in there?
Well, but there's also 7 or 8 guys that didn't pan out.
Correct, yeah. There was one that played only a handful of games. They all played.
Yeah, but okay, Robert Nielsen.
Yeah. No, yeah.
15th overall, played 250 games, sure. But and again, I'm not arguing to say don't get the picks. I think Conroy's in a shitty spot.
Of course he is. Yes, we talked about it. He's been given probably the most diabolical of marching orders. Make the playoffs, but oh my gosh, I'm seeing this team getting really old. I'd love to get young. I think what the news we've heard today, which Boom hasn't really even gotten around to saying yet, is like, if you ever had a day to commit to a rebuild, this is the fucking day.
So we'll spin, let's do Michael Backlund. This was another piece that came out from Frank this morning. Now, I think we've all kind of felt like Backlund has been a Calgary Flame from the day, drafted here, he's played here, doesn't feel like maybe he should play anywhere else, could be a career Flame. The guys in the room have been talking about how he's captain material. Frank had an update on his Twitter regarding Michael as well. Bit of a surprise, told Michael Backlund is also leaning toward not re-signing in Calgary. That could change, and the Flames hope it does. He's been a staple for 15 years. nonetheless, Craig Conroy has decisions to make. I find these kind of, and this is nothing about Frank. I take Frank to absolutely have his facts on this. This feels it can feel a little bit like maybe an agent is throwing some shit out there to see if it sticks and just to we're not sure. We may not, to kind of sweeten the pot potentially on any kind of a deal that he may have as far as a contract re-up with the team. I don't know.
My take on this is that there's more shit in that dressing room. What you said is true. That is a very strong possibility that the agent is trying to manipulate this and use it to his advantage, and that's what an agent should do. The other side I see, with all these guys saying thanks but no thanks, there's some major effing issues in that room.
Yeah, and I think these guys need to be convinced it's going to work. And if you're asking them to make decisions now based on a decision that they have the right to wait a year on, I'm not ready to make a decision. I want more info.
Mm-hmm.
I think every agent would be advising their guys. There's not a lot of advantage to locking in now. Pretty much aside from injury, there's no advantage to locking in.
For Backlund at 34, it's a little bit different.
I suppose, but if I was back on 34 and he said he wants to win, I'd certainly like to see how this looks.
Well, good luck to him in picking a winner. That's a fool's errand, but
no, but at least you could say these 10 teams have a decent shot of going deep. I don't know that the Flames are in that group right now. They're certainly not. So if he's a free agent and says it's just about winning, like I'll sign for $2 million 1 year, like who's competitive? Let's go. I'll be your number 3 center.
What are the Flames offering him?
I don't know. I mean,
what would you?
Me, I wouldn't give him any term. So not much. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 years, 3 to 4.5, like not a lot. He's a third line center.
Yeah, he told me he's the captain yesterday.
I didn't tell you that. I said if he was your captain,
okay, not you. Sorry, but
I think he was a candidate. But I mean, I'm not in that room. We've all agreed. Only guys in the room know who should wear that C. But the notion of him getting huge term here, he said he wants to win. He's not going to get term unless it happens to be just some magical fit with a contender.
Yeah, everybody wants to win.
Everybody wants to win. You're taking this as I'm willing to win at all costs. It's not this might be his last time to get real money, right? Like he's not going to make. It's probably mostly here. Where else is he going to go and make? I don't know. But I guess that was what I was trying to get at is he really willing to play for $2 million as opposed to $5 million?
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. And I don't think he's a $5 million player anymore. So.
And I keep coming back to it. And I don't know. He's 34.
Yeah.
And why? Okay, I'm not. This is fine. We have to read beneath the surface. Then, if we're saying all this stuff, then Conroy's marching orders have to be dump everyone, because we just said he's not that good.
We're not saying he's not that good. What we're saying is he's a secondary piece on a contender. He's at the age of 35 next year when he's a free agent. That'll be his 35-year-old season. He's come off of his big contract that he's made his money on. He's not going to get a high AAV, and he would be like if a contender thinks they need a third line checking center. That's what he is. I mean, no one's here telling you he's a top 2 center. You think he's got a big deal coming?
I don't know.
My thing has been that I just think that it's to say, just take a 1-year deal. This is his last chance at getting a deal, quite likely. If I'm Michael Backlund, I want to win, but to Rhett's point, there's no guarantees. If I can get a 3 or a 4-year deal somehow, a 3-year deal is probably the max. I'm taking that over a 1-year roll of the dice.
We haven't seen a lot of 35-year-old guys get 3-4-year deals, especially when they're third liners. So, I mean, if he can, go get it. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was pick a spot, take less than market to try to win. I wouldn't be surprised by that.
So then we move on to the third player in today's Frank Bomb news, and that is Elias Lindholm. So Hanifin, we believe, has told Conroy and the team that he's not coming back. Michael Backlund has floated the notion that he's not crazy about it. This from Frank: Calgary recently made a big pitch, rolled out the red carpet, money-wise, paraphrasing, to try and re-sign Elias Lindholm. Calgary is waiting on a response from Lindholm. Haven't been given definitive answer yet, but general league speculation is he's leaning toward not re-signing with Calgary.
So in other words, we're willing to overpay you. Thanks, but no thanks.
If you're going to make
here's
it
our best
impossible,
offer.
yeah. if you're going to make it impossible for me to turn down, I guess I'll come back. But
Well,
at the end of the day, we've talked about how hard this is for Craig Conroy. Are the players going to make this incredibly easy for Craig Conroy?
No.
So
that he's just got to trade these guys. If they all say they're not coming back, then you've got to trade everybody.
I feel that way.
I do too. I say start moving assets and figure it out down the road. Like unless ownership isn't willing to, you know what I mean? We are assuming.
This is the challenge, right?
We're assuming that this is another, for lack of a $10 million 8-year deal, right? Like top end money for him. But is that how ownership is approaching it? Have they given Conroy the, hey, go ahead and give him whatever he wants attitude?
But I think it's
typical for that. For the Flames to do that.
It is, but I wonder if this is a little bit different. We've talked about with it being Conroy and Iginla, the sway that they might have, but this isn't like Conroy is saying, yeah, we've got this team that's established. I want to change course with many options at hand. This is kind of being force fed to them from what we believe.
Players' choices, right?
This is what you've been dealt with. And I think Murray / ownership might be more willing and able to handle that based off what happened last year with Gaudreau, where they went into the year, they didn't have him extended, and then he left. That left a very sour taste in Murray.
Here's what Mr. Edwards has to understand, though, is that if guys don't want to be there, overpaying them will not result. You might keep them, but it's not going to help you in your results.
No, agreed.
I think this is the underlying factor I have for the whole Flames group right now. There's too many guys that appear not to really want to be a Calgary Flame.